let me just understand this. The polygraph test is essentially a lie detector test.
Indeed.
And there are people, probably like myself, who could get past the lie detector test. I say
Why do you say that?
I'm saying this on I'm not. I'm just guessing. But why would you say? And there have been known cases
Yes.
where people have actually committed fraud or a crime, and they've got through the lie detector test. So why would this be a good?
You know, you're absolutely right. And the mistake that people will often make, putting polygraphs aside, but you can use that as an example, is relying purely on the testing and not on the other steps. So maybe we'll be a little bit more careless on the vetting. We might not do the interview process, and a bit later on we'll come back to background checking. You might not do that. Well, we're going to completely rely on the testing. Of course, if you do that, then game over. I mean, that's an absolute mistake. And in fact, polygraphs do have a lot of weaknesses. So, for example, I might be morally outraged of stealing a pen from work and find that reprehensible. So when you ask me in a polygraph test, have you ever stolen anything? And I sit there and go, well, actually, I'm going to lie about the fact that I stole a pen. And of course, it will come out as a lie. Whereas you might say, actually, taking a pen away, I don't see that as theft. So when asked the same question, you'll be saying, no, I haven't, and feel comfortable with yourself doing that. And of course, it wouldn't be picked up. So any of these tests, whether they're polygraph, whether they're handwriting, whether they're psychometric tests, whether they're technical tests, are just a part of the process. They show part of the picture, not the only one.
Okay, and tell us about number 4.
The background checking. So the background checking is often the bit that is forgotten about, ironically, because quite often, certainly in the UK, the background checking is typically not done until you've actually employed someone. So you tend not to check up on the references. It doesn't happen in all the cases, but often as not, you don't check up on the references, you don't do the background checking of the individual in their history, speaking to people, until after you've made an employment offer. And that's generally because of confidentiality, etc. And there's some good reasons for that. Therefore, it's also the thing that is often forgotten about. So you've gone through everything else, you've brought in what you think is the greatest candidate, you've got them through the door, you've actually sold yourself emotionally with the individual as well. You've put yourself into a position where you really want to hire that person. They've met all of your stipulations, they've passed all the other 3 areas, you've got them through the door, they're about to start or they have started, and then you go, well, I've got other things to do, the background checking won't get done. That's a big mistake, because once you have the person through the door, that's then your opportunity to go and check their references. That always should be done, personal and professional. Professional references being very important, but then also looking at looking at other sources of data, such as the internet, etc. Looking at other sources of information, your connections, their connections, mutual connections. Who you can now speak openly about because you probably hired them at this point to find out more information. And if you find something that worries you, if there's something that says, actually it doesn't quite add up, then instead of just letting it go, following it up, looking for the evidence, looking for the chain of evidence will indicate either there is an issue or there is no issue. So the background checking is absolutely vital.
I actually have an issue with the background check because I've known of a number of people who have said, look, if we give you a good reference, will you leave? And indeed, one of my companies I've done a lot of consultancy for, they hired someone based on one of their background checks with a very, very major corporation who had said, no, this guy is blah, 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 and he was an absolute nightmare. But because he was already working for the company, it was much harder for them to find a way for him to exit. So how do you deal with that, and how do you look for clues as well, unless they're working there?
There's a couple of ways here. First of all, speed is utmost important, especially in the UK law. So if you start the background checking and it takes 11 months and 29 days, so it just gets in before the last couple of days within the year, you are going to have a problem. Because as soon as you move over that year, then you've got all sorts of additional statutory requirements. So it's no good waiting and just following this up at a slow pace. So speed is absolutely vital to following it up. Clearly, if the previous employee is going to blatantly outright lie about how good the individual is, then there's a couple of checks that you can do. Number one, if it looks too good to be true, quite often it actually is, And what you need to do is go, okay, let me check that with some of his other references. And if they're glaringly different, so if you've got one company turning around saying this person can walk on water whilst juggling chainsaws, yet the other person said, yeah, he was an okay employee. There is a gap there that needs to be further investigated. And then you just pick up the phone and you start speaking to people.
Let me phrase it differently. Someone who's very slow might be referred to by a previous employer as being very meticulous. And you can see, so you think, okay, they're actually, so how do I as an employer reinterpret some of these words? And also, you know, if I'm going for a job, I'm not going to give you 2 references who I think is going to give me a bad reference.
Quite true. So let me take each of those. First of all, let's be very focused here for the moment. You're looking for falsehood. Remember, that's what we're looking for. So at the end of the day, yeah, you are following background checks to see if they're good for the role and good for the company. But what we're also specifically focusing on to see if there's any falsehood that leads these people to be destructive employees, which is very different to whether they're slow or meticulous. It's a different thing. So what you're looking for is for anything that is different between the references. If the references are very different, then there's obviously a gap that you need to literally pick up the phone and start speaking to people, which is the other part. Now, you may not always get there. You know, obviously HR departments of previous companies may not want to speak to you, but it's always worth a try. The other part of it, of course, is trying to find mutual contacts that know these individuals. Clearly, once you've brought the person in there and you're not at risk of confidentiality issues, you can, especially in this community, in the security and the IT community, there's always someone that knows somebody. So as soon as you see something that indicates in the background check there is a difference that needs to be followed up, don't ignore it, don't wait, follow it up with a conversation.
Stuart, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ben Chai. I'm the editor for SecurityVibes.com. If you've enjoyed this video or have any other comments to make, please do fill in the comment boxes and let us know what you think. Thank you.